If you've ever asked yourself, why isn't my heat transfer sticking? Or why do some of my shirts turn out perfect while others peel up, scorch, or just don't look right? Well, you're in the right place. Hey friends, Dave here with Stahls, and today we're cutting it straight. This is your ultimate troubleshooting guide for heat printing. Now, whether you're running a full production shop, starting a side hustle, or somewhere in between, this is the stuff you need to know to get consistently flawless prints with your heat press. Now, not only will this save you time, money, and headaches or gray hairs, but getting this right is the foundation to growing a healthy, profitable apparel decorating business, because nothing eats your profits faster than wasted misprinted shirts, wasted transfers, or worse, disappointed customers. So are you ready? Let's get right into it. Now, we are going to get your issues fixed, but first we need to check the elements for application as a baseline. This is the foundation for troubleshooting and ensuring that you can get a perfect print tonight or whenever you're watching this. We've all been there, right? Just straight panic, those shirts are due tomorrow, right? So heat printing and apparel printing in general is all about consistency. And success always comes down to the main three things, and that's time, temperature, and pressure, right? Now, there is the off chance that we are going to have a defective transfer, but in my history in the apparel decorating industry, that is actually quite rare, and usually it's something that you have control of right now that you could do to fix it. So we'll get to the bottom of it, right? But with time, temperature, pressure, if even one of these is off, your transfer is not going to apply right. Sure, and while best case scenario, it fails on the application right in front of you, which you're like, wait, Dave, best case scenario, right? Well, best case scenario is it applies perfect, but we're gonna have tips and a whole bunch of troubleshooting and a checklist that we're gonna cover here in just a minute to fix it. But the worst case scenario is it fails when my customer or your customer launders it, right? Now, here's what most people don't realize. Your heat press might not actually be doing what it says it's doing. So let's go ahead and break it down. Now, first up, temperature. Now, just because your heat press says it's at 300 degrees, doesn't mean the platen is actually at 300 degrees across the whole surface of this upper platen. Now, this could come down to a variety of reasons, right? From how the heat press is manufactured, the thickness of the heating element, calibration issues, low-cost components used for the temperature probes, maybe even some faulty wiring inside the heat press, a myriad of issues, right? But they're mainly sorted with an accurate heat press like a Hotronix press that we have right here. And you say, cool, Dave, I'll get a Hotronix, but the shirts are due to the customer tomorrow. How can I fix it now? Well, I'm here for you. First up, let's use a temperature gun or heat press test strips, right, to test different spots on the platen. Now, these IR thermometers are super handy and cheap, but with the non-stick coating that we have on many heat presses, they can be off by up to 20 degrees too high or too low with the way that the light is reflected back from this coating. So while these are not super accurate, they can help diagnose any huge discrepancies on your heat press. We're talking about cold spots when we scan all around, right? But what I prefer is actually a more inexpensive option, and that is these heat press test strips, as these are also very inexpensive and measure the heat exactly how a transfer feels it, right? You're gonna peel these and stick them to a piece of paper and then place them in spots around the press. I like using 5, one in the center and then one near each corner, and then I press. Each spot fills in black when the temperature is reached, so you can see how accurate you are. Now, of course, the most accurate way is a high temperature surface thermometer. Now, these could get actually very pricey, with most of them running around the $200 to $300 mark or even higher. Now, for a huge production department, that's totally worth it to ensure that your heat presses are accurate. But for smaller businesses, you're way better off with the $15 packs of these test strips. Now, say you're seeing more than a 10 to 15 difference across different areas, you have cold spots. And that means inconsistent application that you're going to get every single time. Now, you could avoid printing those areas, say if you just have a cold spot up here and the rest of the press is the right temperature. you could adjust accordingly or just not print in that area, right? But you could also adjust the temperature of your press and then test again. Now, unfortunately, if your press does have those cold spots, you should probably replace it immediately, as you're never going to have the accurate application and you're going to be fighting with it for every single shirt that you print, and you might be second guessing if there's going to be any issues, even if it applies for you right here. Issues with your customer, that worst case scenario. Now, if the heating element is low or high across the entire surface, and I will say I have seen heat presses that are 100 degrees hotter than what they say they're set at, you're going to need to compensate accordingly on the settings. So if you're off by 20 degrees, you're too low, then raise the temperature by 20 degrees and check again. Now, another thing I do want to mention is if you started printing a run, say the first 12 shirts printed perfectly fine, and then you started having issues, there's something that a lot of decorators overlook, and that's often with cheaper heat presses that struggle to maintain the temperature during longer production runs. Now, say you're running a stack of shirts back to back to back, the platen might not have time to recover its heat. So your first few shirts come out great at the right temperature, but halfway through that run, the heat's now dropping 20 or 30 degrees without the ability to recover, and suddenly you're dealing with under-applied transfers with the ink lifting when you peel the carrier. Now, a quick tip for those low-cost machines, just after every 5 or 10 shirts, give your press a minute or so to have a little breather and recover to full temperature. Yeah, I will say this is 100% not ideal in any business, especially the decorating industry, where time is money. You've got more orders to fulfill and don't want to stand around for a couple minutes waiting for this thing to heat back up. But that's definitely something to look for when you're looking for your next press to be a production powerhouse for you. I will say the cast-in heating element on all Hoptronics machines is about 3/4 inches thick. So you have nice, even, consistent heat. It's like a cast iron skillet, right? Where it's always going to be an even heat across the entire surface area and retain that heat for one shirt or hundreds. Now, alternatively, you could also check the platen surface temperature again mid-run to make sure it's holding steady. But again, something that's not the most efficient. I don't want to pause production. I want to get the shirts done and out the door, right? So some lower cost presses, and I'm looking at you, Amazon presses under $300, are just never made for professional results. And I will say they're perfectly fine for maybe crafting or the occasional shirt here and there. And even I've struggled with getting consistent, predictable, and repeatable results with those presses when I've tested them, right? But next up, the invisible issue, and that is pressure. Now, pressure is the most misunderstood factor when we talk about heat printing, and here's why it matters. Without the correct pressure, the adhesive won't fully bond to the fabric, and while it might look okay when you peel, it's really not going to survive in the wash. Now, not all transfers are the same too, so you're going to see a range of pressures depending on the transfer type that you're using. Say, screen print transfers, they call out a medium to firm pressure, or a 6 to 8 here on our digital pressure readout, or 60 to 80 psi on most pneumatic machines. Now, I say most because when we measured some imported pneumatic machines, the cheap ones, they were actually way off too. And that's an easy way to tank your brand's reputation for quality, and another reason to invest in quality machines. Now, I will say you can over-apply a transfer just the same as under-applying it. Things like DTF transfers, if you hit them with way too much pressure, you're gonna see some adhesive flowing out from behind that design. And that's common sometimes with heat transfer vinyl as well. So when it says a medium pressure or a light pressure for whatever transfer type you're using, adhere to that recipe. You wouldn't be baking a cake and differ from the recipe they have on the box, right? And expect the same great tasting result, so follow the recipe. Now, if you don't have a digital pressure readout, use the paper or what we call the dollar bill test. Essentially, you take a dollar bill or a piece of paper the size of $1 and place it around the corners of the heat press and then lock the press down. Now, can you pull it out super easy? That's around a light pressure. Now, if it's firm but you could still pull it out, you're probably in that medium pressure range. And a firm pressure should be the farthest you could go down with your pressure knob and still close the press which should make it incredibly hard or impossible to remove that slip of paper. Now for me, it's non-negotiable to have a pressure readout on a heat press if you want to be serious about a t-shirt printing business. It's 2025, and I'm not trusting my business's reputation and quality to just guessing here, or feel. I want to have a number that I could trust. Now, similarly to temperature, during longer production runs, some vibration from the press opening and closing could, in some cases, cause this pressure setting or knob on the top of the press to back out slightly, especially on manual presses like this. So, if you see, the prints start lifting midway through a job, check the temperature first, but also check that pressure again. Now, if your press has this digital pressure readout right here, it makes it super easy to verify. But on manual presses, you're gonna wanna do a quick pressure check every dozen or so shirts just to stay consistent. Now, if you are going by feel of the handle here, you will notice it getting lighter and lighter and lighter as you press if it is backing off that pressure. And after a while, you get really good at eyeballing the pressure just based on feel alone, but it's always nice to have that pressure gauge to check. Now next up, and this is the easiest to get right, but still sometimes overlooked, every transfer type has a specific time setting. Screen printed transfers like Goof-Proof are usually in that 4 to 6 second range, right? DTF transfers like Ultra Color Max, 12 to 15 seconds. Sublimation, sometimes up to a full minute on press. But one key mistake I see people make is that they get in a rhythm, pressing the same time for everything, which does lead to misapplied designs and prints. We need the adhesive to activate and bond. Always double check the instructions for the exact transfer type you're using and set the press accordingly. Now, let's talk about something that causes a lot of confusion, especially for beginners: hot peel versus cold peel. Now, this refers to when you're supposed to peel the carrier sheet after pressing. Now, hot peel is essentially an immediate peel. You peel the carrier immediately when the press opens while it is still hot. And a cold peel, you let the garment cool completely to room temperature before peeling the carrier. Now, if you peel too soon or too late, depending on the transfer type and carrier, the ink could actually adhere back to the carrier and lift, crack, tear, or partially come off. Now, the pro tip here is if you're not sure whether a transfer is hot peel or cold peel, check the manufacturer instructions. You can find them online at Stahls.com for every single transfer type we have, and in many cases, it'll come with the transfer itself, right? Different products are always going to require different peels and temperatures, times, and even pressures, even within the same category, like different screen printed transfers or direct to film. Not all DTF is created equal. And yes, this is also where pressure matters again. Even a hot peel transfer can fail if your pressure is too low because the adhesive hasn't fully bonded and been pushed into the fibers of the shirt. Now, a bonus tip here is if, say, you're printing in a cold room, sometimes garages in the middle of winter, I've been there too, outdoors, or even on site with a big wind coming through, hot peel transfers are going to cool way faster than expected. So don't turn your back and wait too long to peel, or you're gonna end up fighting with it or dealing with lifting designs. Now, if that happens, that's okay. All you have to do, close the press, let it get back hot again, let it open, and peel immediately. Now, cold peel, very, very similarly, just on the other side of the coin, you need to ensure that the transfer comes back to room temperature for the ink to release from the carrier and the adhesive of the transfer to bond to the fabric, which means taking it off the press, as this lower platen of the press is always going to retain heat and will never allow that transfer to come back to room temperature. Sure, you could rub it with a stone or a piece of glass, or I don't know, I've seen it all to try to cool it down, right? You wave it in the air or maybe even blow on it to speed it up, but I do not recommend any of that. Introducing any friction or movement or stress to the adhesive while it's cooling will 100% impact the bond. Ever remove hot glue while it's still hot? Yeah, it never quite bonds like it should after that. Now, let's also check fabric compatibility here. And this is a big one that I feel like gets overlooked by both experienced shops and even beginners, right? While more for specialty transfers and fabrics, we do want to ensure that the adhesives and ink are formulated for the material that we're printing on. Most transfers on the market these days, I'm talking DTF or screen print transfers, are compatible with cotton polyester and cotton poly blends, which covers the vast majority of garments we print day to day in this industry. Now, always check the fabric before ordering transfers. You're going to see what fabrics they are listed for use on. Printing on nylon, spandex, or sublimated materials, look for something rated to print on those. And for those sublimated materials, you might even need a dye blocker. And it's probably good to look for a transfer under 300 degrees, otherwise we're probably going to be dealing with scorching on the garment. Now next up, we do have to chat about the dreaded coatings that are, well, on some apparel. Now, say you're printing on waterproof or water repellent coatings like nylon jackets, sometimes some rain defender gear, polos, or a whole bunch of garments that have this coating or stain release on them, right? So this can definitely prevent transfer adhering to the fibers. Now the solution here, check the supplier website for the details on the specific blank. Try to avoid using heat transfer, screen printing, or any direct printing on these types of fabrics. Now embroidery, sure, go for it all day, but in most cases you are puncturing a waterproof layer when you're stitching it, right? So it's technically not waterproof there anymore. But say you have these garments in the shop right now and need to print. Try to get some denatured alcohol at a local hardware store, depending on where you live. It is not available in some states. But make sure you're in a very well ventilated area with gloves on and gently take a spare rag or towel, soak some denatured alcohol in it, and then gently rub the print area. Allow it to fully dry and then run a test print. You could also use a low temperature transfer designed for nylon, say like CAD Cut Soft Opaque, or Gorilla Grip for these uses. Okay, with all of the fundamentals out of the way, we may have already fixed some of your issues, and I hope we did. But let's take a quick troubleshooting checklist right here to go over it all so that you can be confident your prints are going to turn out great. Number one, check the instructions for the transfer type you're using. Hot peel or cold peel? Ensure you have the correct time, temperature, and pressure settings. It is the foundation, and I've been guilty of thinking I was there, and then when I go to double check, I'm not, right? We also want to test the actual heat that the heat press is kicking out. Use a temperature gun or those heat press test strips. Is the press hitting the right temperature across the entire platen? If the press has been running for a while, did the temp drop part way through? If you give it a minute, does it recover? Is it matching what it says on the screen? Step 3, check your pressure. Retest using the paper test. Lock the press. Try pulling that piece of paper out from the platen. If it slides out easily, you need more pressure likely, right? And did the pressure back off during the run from any vibrations, just like maybe the temperature did? Reset and recheck. Now the time, are you using the right time for that specific transfer type? Don't guess, check the spec sheet. And are you peeling when you're supposed to? Comes back to that hot peel, warm peel, right? Also, let's look at the fabric type. Is it waterproof, stretchy, heat sensitive? You might need a transfer formulated specifically for that material or adjust your temperature and pressure accordingly. But test, test, test to ensure that it is applied correctly. Now, of course, are there any surface issues? This affects our pressure, right? But if we're using any seams, zippers, or buttons that are on this lower platen, they are going to affect our pressure and give us uneven pressure. Isolate those printing areas or use a heat printing pillow or a smaller platen to flatten that print area and drop any obstructions off of the press. All right, and here's one rule that I personally use for just a final check. So after pressing, let the shirt cool a solid 15 to 20 minutes so you can make sure those adhesives are all firm, right? Then we're gonna stretch it slightly. And we're not tugging, we're not pulling a lot here, right? But we're just checking to see if the design is going to lift off the fabric at the edges, or maybe it peels up, or just doesn't look right, and it means you've got an issue with your temperature, time, or pressure. I always caution, do not launder any heat-applied products within 24 hours of printing them, right? Now, I do love doing wash testing, but you want to allow the adhesive to fully bond before you do any wash testing, right? I've wash tested a whole bunch to ensure there are no issues when I'm testing out new garments, new fabrics, or even new transfer types, so I can be confident before I offer them to any of my customers. Now, I know we talked about it a little bit earlier, but yes, a quality heat press is an investment, but it is the engine for your production. With a quality press, you get even, reliable heat, consistent pressure readings, and accurate application. Now that translates to predictable results, and predictable results equal more profit and less waste. I've been in and out of print shops for the past 15 years, and the most likely culprit of misapplied transfers most of the time is either the settings or the press itself. Now, if your press is inconsistent, no amount of trial and error is going to help you scale efficiently. And I've talked with so many businesses just starting out that run into so many headaches that impact the success of their business when they spend all that time fussing with a heat press. Now, heat printing isn't too complicated. It's a lot more of a science than, say, an art form, right? But you do need to follow the recipe right. When your time, temperature, pressure, and peel are all dialed in, printing becomes predictable and profitable. You're gonna save shirts, you save transfers, you save money, and more importantly, you feel confident taking on any job that comes through your shop. And that confidence is what grows your business. So, did this video help fix your printing issue? Let us know down in the comments below. If you want more tips like this or help choosing the right transfers for your jobs, make sure to hit subscribe right here to the Stahls TV YouTube page for all of the heat printing tips, tricks, inspiration, and education that we're dropping every single week. If you still have a problem with your heat transfer application, give us a call at Stahls. We are here to empower you, to help you, and make sure your business succeeds. But until next time, I'm Dave. Happy pressing.